Hi, let's talk a little more about valved brass instruments and how they work. As you know, this is a tuba, but could just as well be a trumpet, or a euphonium, or a French horn, or a flugelhorn. They all work on the same principles. We've talked before about how the depression of one or more of the valves lowers the pitch. Today we will talk specifically about by how much you can lower that pitch. So let's take a look at a piano keyboard. The distance between these two notes is known as a whole step, or a whole tone. And the distance between these two notes is called a half step, or a half tone. Now what's the difference? This is the whole tone. You see that there's an extra key between them. Now here's the half tone. There's no extra key between them. That's the difference. So this is a whole tone, and this is a whole tone, but this is a half tone. This would also be a half tone. This would also be a half tone. Another example of a whole step would be here, because you see there is a note between them. So here's a question for you. What's the distance between those two notes? Well, the answer is 1, 2, 3. That distance, or that interval, is 3 whole tones. And there's a name for that in Western music. It's called a three-tone. But of course no one would say three-tone. You have to say it in Greek. It's a tritone. So the distance between this note and this note is called a tritone. By the way, the half tone is the smallest interval in Western music. Now, when I say Western music, what am I talking about? Am I talking about country and Western music? No, in fact, I'm not. I'm talking about European music or North American music. I'm not talking about Indian music or indigenous music to tribes of South America or African music or Japanese music. Western music is generally the term you use to refer to music written either in the classical tradition in Europe, or for example the music that you hear in pop radio in America. So again, half step, whole step. So let's take a look at a guitar to see these principles in action. If I play this note and then this note, then we will have had a half tone. If we play this, it's also a half tone. But if I play this and then this, that is a whole tone, because you see that there's one fret here that I didn't use. So the same principle is on the piano. So now how does that work on brass instruments? How does that work on my tuba here? If I want to lower a note by a half tone, I press the smallest valve, the baby. If I want to lower it by a whole tone, I press the daddy. If I want to lower it by 1.5, I press the granddaddy. But of course, if you think about it, you could also press the baby, which is a half step, and the daddy, which is a whole step, so 1.5. If I want 2, I could press 1.5 plus a half. If I want 2.5, I would press 1.5 plus 1. If I wanted 3, I would press 1.5 plus a half plus 1, which also adds up to 3. And there's our tritone. So the most that you can lower any given note on a tuba is by a tritone, which sounds like this. So now you know a little bit more about how brass instruments work.